Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining. We're just going to give it about another minute or two just to see if anybody else joins in, and we'll get started today. Hi, Dan. Hello, everybody. We do have a chat window as well, so everybody feel free to use it throughout the presentation. Throw your questions in. We'll have a Q&A towards the end as well, but feel free to type away as we go. Okay, great. So I still see people jumping in. Give it about 30 more seconds. Hello, everybody. All right, excellent. So again, thank you all for joining and taking the time today as we go through a full demo with a focus on our NEM3 features and how to maximize ROI on our proposals using Solargraf today. You can see the three of us are here, so I'll just quickly do an introduction as to who we are. You have myself, Andrew. I think I probably spoke to a lot of you already in the past. I'm the senior account executive for the West Coast with Solargraf. So if you haven't talked to me, you'll probably be reaching out eventually. You'll speak to me first. Then we have Bhavani, who is the senior director of both the product and the customer success team. And we have George, who is our product manager. He's the lead behind all the design tool features you're going to see today, and he'll be presenting and walking us through our demo and our presentation. And I won't go around the room and ask everybody to introduce themselves that's waiting, but again, thank you all for being here. Before we get started, I was going to start a quick poll here. We just want to see who's using what tool and to see if you're already using Solargraf or if you're using something else. So please go ahead. You should see it on your screen right now. Throw us a quick answer. Give us a good idea of who's in here. Great. So already a lot of Solargraf users. So that's great. Again, today is going to be a good educational, and we're not just here to show people that are already using Solargraf. So I'll go through a quick review of who we are as well, what you could get done with Solargraf for those that don't know yet. Great. So just to take a look here and to take a look at what Solargraf is, for those that don't know, like I said, we're still taking a look at the poll. Okay, so we are an all-in-one solar software and service. So we want there's two components to using Solargraf. The first is having our layout of the design and proposal software, where you have full capability of sitting down and doing your own design and your layout. We have accurate shading, both NYSERDA and NREL certified. We just launched a lot of AI features in terms of auto detection for your roof, pitch detection, tree detection, obstruction detection. The goal with Solargraf is to make your life really easy while you utilize the tool. A lot of customization in terms of the proposal, incentives, pricing options, financing options that'll end up on the proposals that you're going to be sending over to your clients. We have integration capabilities through both DocuSign for contracting, financing capabilities, lead and CRM as well for the API. And we have a database for different aspects in terms of AHJ, materials, utility tariffs. So it's all going to be address based. I know a lot of you on here are primarily the California market. So you'll see everything tailored to the areas that you're going to be working in. The other aspect of Solargraf is our services that we provide. We provide both proposal and permit services. So if you don't want sales reps to sit down and do the designs or layouts or yourself to take the time to do it, we do have a team available that can do the quotes, put together the designs for you. We have expedited delivery options. We can provide any type of design layout. So new construction builds, ground mounts, battery designs, it's all capable with our team as well. It's not just a solar PV layout. And then our permit services, we cover all 50 states, all HJs. Again, we cover solar, storage, generators, EV, and we are now leading into the tool being able to provide an SLD or self-generated permits is on our timeline as well. So a lot of aspects in terms of the services and what we're able to provide here. And just to give an idea into the flow and the streamline here, we want the goal to be from lead generation all the way up to design and proposal to be within a 15-minute window as soon as you get the hang of Solargraf, even quicker. So you have the ability to customize and load in your lead management, either through public API or just entering in manually. That leads into the roof design tool with, again, like the AI automation now that's been launched and makes things really quick and easy in terms of doing the layout for your roof design, which leads into the solar design where you'll have your shading completed for you, a smart designer aspect where it'll do your layout for you as well in terms of battery layout, solar layouts, and the battery design tool is a full capability that's going to give you all options and modes in terms of grid tied, export modes. Once the completion of the design is there, you have roof, you have solar, you have the battery. We then lead into the proposals, which you could send as a web quote or as a PDF option to a client. They have the ability to be customized fully with your own flow, your colors, your fonts. So what you want to show is in that proposal. And then that leads into the generation of plan sets or your own SLD, which you can create for the submittal to your AHJ. So it's an all-in-one. The goal, again, is to provide everything that you need in one tool. And today what we're going to focus on is the NEM 3 aspect of using Solargraf. So what I'm going to do, I'll hand it over to Bhavani, and she's going to go into a little bit more detail on NEM 2 versus NEM 3.
Thanks, Andrew. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I don't have to, you guys probably already know, the NEM 2 days are gone and just the PV alone is not going to offset the bill. So we'll kind of showcase what a solar only system will do on your bill offset. And then we'll show how to add a battery and then all the bells and whistles that we have in terms of export mode, grid tied. How do you actually do it with the click of a button without changing the pricing and things like that? So if you can go to the next slide, Andrew, we'll kind of cover okay. So kind of taking the topic at hand, how do you build winning proposals within the net billing tariff? We think of the whole process in terms of like 3 steps. The first one in NEM 2 days are not as critical, but in the NEM 3 days, you really have to model the consumption profile really well. And the reason being the selling and the export and the import are extremely different. So the consumption profile has a big impact. We do offer multiple ways to model the consumption profile in the tool. You could do it with a single period of bill, or or the most accurate way we recommend is green button data. You will see the capabilities that we've built for all 3 utilities in California when NEM 3 is there. You can literally just download and without any changes in the data, upload the data as is, both XML and CSV. So we do allow both of that. And then we do ask you to actually design any future appliances, especially EV. We have the ability to model future appliances within the tool. So as you're designing it, take that into consideration as well. So the first one is really modeling energy needs accurately. And if you go to this next step, setting up the tariffs correctly. And thankfully, a lot of it is done automatically inside Solargraf. So based on the zip code that you have for the address, we automatically select the utility and then the most used tariff. So if you have to change the tariff, that's the only thing that kind of you have to do. Select the pre-solar tariff correctly. After that, the post-solar tariff, which is NEM 3 or net billing tariff, is automatically selected. We've already implemented the new resolution where the generation and the delivery credits have been split and the offset is also happening correctly. So we've already built all of that algorithm behind the scenes. So you don't have to worry about it. And then the third one is really a key piece of it. To begin with, designing a system that is maximizing our ROI, we have a lot of options that we have within the tool. The first one is adding a battery. We do recommend adding a battery on every design. And for some homeowners who are not fully convinced about adding a battery, you can actually leverage the option capability on Solargraf. Do one with just PV, one with battery and PV, and then show what the bill will look like when you add a battery. The other one is grid-tied batteries. Grid-tied batteries are generally a lot more cheaper. And so per kilowatt hour, you will see a big difference around $400 to $500. So we have the capability within Solargraf to set up the pricing if you're doing grid-tied separately and then a grid agnostic system separately. So you have to just set it up. And when you're designing it, if you want to go grid-tied, all you have to do is check the box and a different pricing will load up. The third one is export mode. When you actually allow the battery to export into the grid during those golden hours in September and August even, you will see a difference of around 5% to 10% on the ROI. So we do recommend that you also use the export mode capabilities on Solargraf to model this. And the last one, a lot of the installers are not actually educating the homeowners. We do have grid service incentives on the platform for both PG&E and for SDG&E. So George will be able to showcase how do you actually add these incentives on your proposal. Again, the goal is to be able to leverage all of these capabilities and build a system that is lower cost with maximum ROI. And George will be able to showcase all of this on the platform. Go ahead, George. You can start a design. Thanks, everyone.
Just before we go into the design, I'm going to run one more poll. I just want to clarify with everybody and kind of get an idea of what your attach rate is with batteries on your current installs. So you should see that on your screen. So far, it's looking like everybody is at least in that 50% range. Great. So we'll give this a second again on the poll. And so again, for everybody that wasn't here earlier, you can use the chat window. You can throw questions in. We'll be answering as George completes the demo. We're also going to host a Q&A towards after the demo and the presentation. So stick around if you have questions you want answered. All right, great. And so George, again, is our product lead behind the design tool features. So he's going to be doing the presentation, and take it away, George.
Cool. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for everyone for being here today. Just give me a moment to share a screen. We're looking for this guy. Okay. Perfect. You guys should see my screen now. You'll see a project list page pop up. So this is where we sort of start the journey for creating a new project. A project in Solargraf is really just a kind of an opportunity or a site. So it's where we'll store all the work related to a design for a specific customer, a quote for that person, or a permit if we get that far. So start with a new project. As I say, job number one is to locate the site. So just enter the address. You can optionally enter the customer's information here at this stage. You can do that later. If you're connecting Solargraf to a CRM via a API, you will likely be able to copy this information automatically when you launch Solargraf from that CRM. Just take a moment to make sure that the pin has landed on the roof. We're obviously using a Google interface here. Probably in California, you're not going to have any problems, but if you are in maybe rural areas, sometimes that pin can drift a little bit from the roof. So we just want to kind of click anywhere on this image to just to center that pin as needed. From there, we will just take a moment to establish a few critical details before we get into a design. So simple things like if it's residential or commercial, that's going to change which utility tariffs you see available, which incentives are available as well. So worth getting that right at this stage. As Andrew mentioned, we do allow you to order proposals that can be delivered by our team. So that would be where you would select that. Obviously for today, we'll stick with, the scenario where a rep or a designer themselves is creating it in real time. Just take a moment to make sure you're happy with this image. We're using NEM app. They're pretty much the best in the business as far as we're concerned. So do make use of that. Just note that you can upload your own image should you need. So that could be if you're flying a drone or if, let's say, you have blueprints for a new construction project. Just note that when you upload that image, you'll need to rotate it such that north faces the top of the screen, and you'll need to scale that image. So you'll need to know the length of an eve or ridge. Anyway, we can skip through that, not so relevant for NEM 3. If we come back to the topic of the day, here where you see the energy consumption, you'll notice that we've already found the correct utility. As Bhavani mentioned, this is likely the correct tariff. It's worth taking a moment to review that, especially if you have a bill in hand. You can always update this later during the design as well, should you need. And you'll see that here, post-installation, so once the solar's on the roof, we'll be moving to NEM 3, which is the net billing tariff. So again, very little to do here. If ever the utility does impose a power export limit, you can enter that here. This field can also be used if you're looking to do an expansion of a system that you want to grandfather into NEM 1 or 2. You just put this to 0, and that will essentially prevent the new system that you're installing from exporting to the grid, and thus allow you to stay on NEM 2. After that, the last thing we really want to know before we're ready to actually build a design is the specific usage or consumption of that property. So if ever you have it, the best way to do this is to upload the usage in the form of a green button data file. So we accept XML or CSV. So just choose whichever format you have. Let's say it's an XML, and then you can upload the file here. This obviously captures actual usage of that property, so it is very useful for accurately modeling sort of how the new PV and the battery are going to interact with the loads and with the grid. We support 15-minute or hourly intervals. So again, that is the best, but I say you probably won't have that to begin with. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to delete that, and instead I'm going to estimate the consumption. Excuse me, let's jump over here. And there's many ways you can estimate the consumption. If you have a bill in hand or that's been shared with you by the homeowner and you've got a specific start and end date, we can enter the consumption for that period or those periods. For the purpose of today's demo, I'm going to assume that this person hasn't really given me a great deal of information. So I'm going to estimate annual usage at 12,000 kilowatt hours. Now, where we're not using the green button data, so we're estimating, Solargraf will take that 12,000 annual estimate, and it will distribute that across each month of the year according to typical usage patterns for other properties on the same tariff. So this is really going to reflect seasonality, weather patterns, and so on. So this is taking one annual value into 12 monthly values, and then below we start to look at the actual profile of the property. So given any day's consumption, how do we distribute that total consumption across each hour of the day? And we provide you a list of kind of boilerplate profiles. We could say it's a household with school kids. You guys can create your own if you want, if you've got specific types of properties that you're targeting, but usually one of these default ones would be a pretty close approximation. And here you'll be familiar with this graph. We're seeing, let's say in summertime, we see, a morning peak around 7 a.m. and then a bit of a lull during the day, and then a bit of a larger peak in those evening hours. So again, this is, it's a good way for us to better understand, according to the production and consumption of each hour of the day, when we'll be able to charge and discharge from the battery. Excuse me. One other element that I'll call out here before we get into the design is the ability to manage appliances. And this can become especially important for NEM 3.0 and anytime we're adding a battery, really. So you'll see an example, a list of a few examples of particularly heavy loads in the home. And if we have things like a heat pump or an air conditioner, it's useful to note those here, just because they'll typically have specific surge power requirements that could change what kind of battery system we recommend to you. Specifically in the case of consumption, I'll take the electric vehicle as an example. So let's imagine that this home either has just purchased an electric vehicle and the additional consumption from that is not reflected in my 12,000 kilowatt hours annually estimate, or maybe they're thinking of imminently purchasing electric vehicles. So we want to make sure when we design our system, we're designing it to cater to that additional load. So there's a list here of all your kind of typical electric vehicle manufacturers, and then the model. And then you can also choose how many miles a day you expect that vehicle to be driven. So we will take, let's say, 30 miles a day, and we'll convert that into an approximate kilowatt hour usage per day. I'm going to uncheck this box to say that this additional 12 kilowatt hours per day is not included in the 12,000 I entered earlier. So that will be added to the 12,000. And once we do that, you'll actually see even on this page, this yellow portion of the graph. So this accounts for the additional energy that's being consumed to charge that vehicle. And this is typically modeled to be in the off-peak hours when the rest of the loads in the home are more active, less active. So from there, we're ready to create our design. At this stage, the project essentially is created. So if you had to drop this and go do something else and come back, you totally could. Your work up to now will be saved. Once we get into the design tool, there's three tabs I'm going to cover today, and I'm going to try and be quite quick because I'm aware that we're running down the clock. I'm going to worry about roof, solar, and battery design today, and then I'm going to run you through a proposal. So we mentioned earlier in the slides there is the ability to generate SLDs, or actually a complete permit plan set that's being built out in Solargraf. That work is still underway and being tested by some of our users, so I won't cover that in today's webinar. For the roof design, it's very simple. Really, all we want to do first is outline the roof in 2D, and then we want to render it in 3D. So the best way for you to go about this is to use this option to detect the roof outline. That uses computer vision to find the outline of the roof within the image. From there, we'll use what we call the wizard, which is really just a series of algorithms that will take that 2D outline and convert it into 3D. So specifically, we're looking for the pitch and azimuth of each facet. You can see the purple obstructions that are rendered. You can see the surrounding trees. We're also looking for any walls, which are essentially vertical walls within the confines of the roof that separate stories. We don't have any of those here. And then we render that as this beautiful 3D model. And from there, we can open up our split screen and we can kind of compare that side by side and just make sure that, nothing has been missed. Obviously, I've skipped the garage here. We could have added that if we wanted. But we're really just quality checking at this stage just to make sure that everything's come out as expected. Once you're happy with your roof design, you can proceed to solar. And from there, we're going to begin just by placing modules. So you can see the menu that's opened here. We can choose our hardware. You guys can control exactly which hardware appears in the panel or micro list based on what you supply. You can choose your orientation. If you're working on a flat roof, there's some additional settings here, but we can ignore those for today. I'm just going to use the manual method, which is really just a one click, and it will just kind of max fit that facet with as many modules as possible. So it is using this module only in portrait. I can do the same maybe on this south facing facet as well. And then from there, we can calculate production. So obviously at this stage, we're going to calculate the shading on the modules. That's a homegrown engine that, as Andrew mentioned, is certified by various players in the industry. And once we know the shading per module, we will then calculate production. So you're going to get an annual first year production estimate just in here. And then we're going to compare that with the home's current consumption, or rather the future consumption, including that EV. And that will give us a production offset. Bear with me, guys. It does take a little bit longer when I'm sharing my screen with the particular tool we're using. So it's totally expected to have slightly more than a delay. Probably many of you, I can see most of you on the poll, or many of you using Solargraf today, you'll be aware that it typically happens much quicker than this. So while we're waiting for that to spin, I will just sort of give you a heads up as to where we're going next. Once we have a production value and a consumption offset that kind of meets our needs, we can then proceed to design batteries. In general, we're trying to achieve a consumption offset of about 100 to 110%. So that means we're going to produce between 100 and 110% of what the home consumes. That does not necessarily translate into a 100% bill offset, as we know. So in this case, actually, we're a little bit short on panels. What I may even do in this case is just manually, I'll just add this garage. I'm just tracing around that. And we'll put some modules on there as well, just because I want to avoid sort of the north face, and I want to avoid anything that faces directly towards the street as well. So bear with me. There we go. So we can add some modules down here. I'll tell you what, I'll put that in landscape, and I'm just going to try and use as much of this roof as possible. Let's put another one in here. And we can use the north side. So again, a little bit of kind of trial and error to make sure that you're happy that you've achieved the right consumption offset. Probably my 12,000 annual consumption is probably a slight overestimation on a property this size. But ultimately, as I say, you'll end up with a consumption offset that is typically significantly higher than your utility bill offset. So obviously with NEM 3.0, we're really focused on bill savings. That's the main driver of sales. So what we want to do next is obviously add a battery. We can proceed straight to the battery design tool. And from here, essentially, it's a fairly straightforward form. You as the user will be required to input certain information, like, for example, which manufacturer you want to use. Obviously, you'll see Enphase at the top of that list, but do be aware there are other manufacturers that are supported inside Solargraf. Where that manufacturer has multiple product ranges, as is the case for Enphase, you'll need to select which range you want to use. Obviously, it will be the 5 Ps for Enphase. Here, as Bhavani mentioned, it's important to check the box for grid tied. That's going to reduce your cost and drive up your ROI and reduce your payback. And of course, we're also going to be using the optimized savings mode for NEM 3.0. So we're actually going to model the battery in that savings mode. The last thing that you'll need to provide the tool in this form is your target bill offset. So keep in mind that right now we're at about 51, 52%. We're looking, let's say, to drive that up to maybe 85, add another 30% bill offset just with the battery. Keep in mind, guys, even if you put this slider at 100%, you will never eradicate the bill. There will always be some bill. So again, 85, 90% is usually a very good target. Anything beyond that, and you start to reach a point of diminishing returns. So I'll leave it at 85, and I'll ask the tool for a recommendation. So here, what Solargraf will do now is it will look at all the possible configurations in that 5P range. So either 1 5 kilowatt hour battery, or 2 or 3, etc. And it will basically find the best configuration or the smallest configuration that would meet the bill offset that we had requested. So in this case, it's recommending 3 5Ps. I can use that. That's going to give me my bill offset. I think it was about 85%, which is pretty much exactly what we wanted, and frankly, probably as good as we'll get. On this screen, you do get the net savings, right? So this is looking at the pricing that you've entered for your batteries. which you'll have to do on your settings page prior to using this tool. So it's looking at what your savings will be over a 25-year period with these 3 batteries priced as you price them in your account. And then it's also showing you what those savings would look like had you not added the batteries. So just a useful information here. And we do have some installers that are actually showing this screen to their homeowners and actually walking them through that. And this really helps to kind of illustrate why those batteries are needed. From there, we can proceed to our proposal. So I'll just save my work. And just allow that to save. Should be a little bit quicker this time. There we go. So yeah, to talk about the proposal, I'll presume most of you have seen a Solargraf proposal today. We'll try not to go too much in depth on sort of the layout and format of the proposal and all the different features that go into that. But if we're specifically looking at things in an NEM 3.0 or California context, the first thing that I want to point out is under settings, you can, for option 1, you can go to manage incentives. And from there, I mean, you should typically have your tax credit already enabled. Again, you can define which of these are sort of defaults from your settings. But it is worth taking a moment to just review the list of available incentives to see if this home would qualify for any. So for example, in this case, because we're in San Diego, part of the world, and we have battery added, we would qualify for the demand side grid support. So I can activate that just for this design. And that will now reflect in the pricing section of our proposal, as well as in the estimated savings section, which includes the monthly breakdown with any kind of incentive related revenues or savings. So that's, again, one step that, we've put a lot of effort into make sure that all of the incentives, specifically for storage, but really for anywhere in the US, are updated. And there are, as I say, some that have kind of come out of the NEM 3.0 progression. So I'll just jump back to my quote for a moment. We'll see that in a second. And the other thing that I didn't really cover, but I will do before we open up to Q&A, is you may still have homeowners or potential customers who are unsure on why the battery is needed. So one of the things that Solargraf does really well is it allows you to create multiple designs, right? So I can go up to my designs here. I can take option 1. I'm going to rename that. I'm going to say that's PV plus battery. And then I could create a clone of that design and remove the batteries. So we'll do that real quick. I'm just going to, again, open up that menu. Let's go here. Sorry, I can see a little bit of reloading. Let's clone that design. So this one, I'm just going to call it PV only. There we go. Sorry, I'm seeing a little lag on my device. Excuse me, guys. And as I say, once we've created that clone, it's essentially a second option that we can present to the homeowner. Before I present it to them, of course, I'll need to go into the clone and actually remove those batteries. But as soon as we remove the batteries, obviously the quote will update, and there we'll be able to see kind of a side-by-side of, okay, what would the outcome look like in terms of, your immediate bill, your savings over 25 years, all the financial values that you'd see on a quote. What would they look like where we're only doing a PV or when we're adding those 15 kilowatt hours? So again, if I just go into my PV only design, I'm just going to head straight to the battery design. And from there, I'm just going to clear all the work that we did prior. And then I'll finish with a quick demo on the comparison chart on the quote, which is really where we see those options side by side. And that usually is the moment where a homeowner will start to recognize that the batteries actually are more or less a necessity, I would say, in this part of the world. So again, I'll just clear everything we did in there. That's good. I'll save. And bear with me. We'll go have a look at our quote. Just wait for that to save. Okay, we'll give it one more go. Sorry, a little bit quick there. I think we could actually see, yeah, that bill offset was around 37% without the batteries. So, I mean, here on this quote, I haven't sent it to a homeowner yet. I've still got time to kind of configure various details. I could even create a third or a fourth option if I thought there were other scenarios that they might want to see. But here's where we would select sort of between those options, and we can go in a deep dive in each of those scenarios below. But if we just want to get a quick summary of how does the PV plus battery compare with just PV, you can use this comparison chart. And here you can compare either sort of one system or one design and then see multiple financing options, so like a cash versus a lease. But in this case, we're looking both in a cash scenario, what do our savings look like and our cost and so on with the batteries and without. So obviously system size is the same, consumption offset's the same, we're still producing the same amount of energy from PV, but it's really the monthly energy payment, which is essentially a combination of your remaining utility bill plus any payments towards the system if you're doing a loan or something like that. Sorry, just wait for that to load again. Really, it's kind of calling out all of the main, let's say, financial values here. So savings over 25 years, you can see we're adding approximately 100,000 savings over 25 years just with the battery. And I think the payback and ROI as well typically are going to look a lot more favorable. So let's just see if we don't get a look at those here just yet. But gross cost, obviously, your upfront cost after rebates and incentives, net savings, everything's kind of in there. So again, that's one tool that we see a lot of usage from, especially for people in your part of the world when they're trying to show what the impact of that battery is. So yeah, thanks for hearing me out, guys. Andrew, I'll hand it back to you if you like. We can do a little Q&A.
Great. Thanks, George. Appreciate the walkthrough. Yeah, we do have questions coming in. We're going through them one by one and responding here. So Aaron, just to quickly answer you, I'll just go from top bottom as I work up. Yes, you could create a PDF proposal as well that has the pricing breakdown, the ROI, cover letter. So we give a lot of pages in there. There's like 10 to 15 pages, and you could turn on and off what you actually want to display in the proposal that you send over. Bhavani, I think, is answering Carson's.
Yeah, I couldn't actually paste the whole section. Let me post the link, George. Can you open up the Confluence page and kind of quickly show all the batteries? Let me give it to you.
Not a problem.
We'll put it in the KB articles, knowledge base articles as well for the folks.
Let's have a look. I'll just open it up and flash it on the screen quick.
Yeah.
It's this guy. So you guys should see that drop on your screen any moment. Pretty extensive list of manufacturers that we support today.
A little hard to read, George. Maybe make it a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I'll call them out. We've got obviously LG, Simplify, Sonnen, SunVault, HomeGrid, Mongrid Power, BYD, Bide, Renogy, Soluna, Duracell, Stores Power, Fortress Power, Canadian Solar, Panasonic, Hanwha Q-Cells, Greenworks, Huawei, Avalon, and Solex Power. In addition to those that we've had prior, which are obviously Enphase, Tesla, Electric Power, Franklin, Generac Power Cell, Curler, and SolarEdge as well.
And some of them we do not have their image because of copyright issues. The only way we can actually add an image of these, you would see a standard image for these batteries for some of them. And if you want a battery image to be added, send us one of your installation pictures. We don't have any copyright issues when we use installed images because that belong to you. So we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, and Aaron, again, with the PDF, you are able to, so our database of materials usually have built out spec sheets, but you could load in your own spec sheets and your own pages as well, if you prefer. Importing old Aurora projects, I don't think there's a direct connection to it. You'd probably have to recreate them in Solargraf.
Yeah, that's correct.
Kelly had an issue uploading green button data. We've done a lot of work on the green button data side, so we've made it easier to upload.
Yeah, this should be fixed, Kelly. If you're still seeing issues, let us know. We'll definitely have a one-on-one session and we'll look at your numbers. So it's 15 minutes and 1 hour we support. Regarding the Tesla Powerwall 3, we are making some enhancements and then we'll allow AC coupled and then the DC coupled with the inverter PV system by the next release, which will be first week of May.
Input negative usage values manually.
Manually, no, we don't have that capabilities.
Yashar, green button data, you could choose between 15-minute or 1 hour intervals. 15-minute is usually geared towards commercial.
But we do support both. I think
Yeah.
the question, Andrew, is can you support both? The answer is yes, yeah.
Yeah, so this, yeah, standard hourly or 15 minutes. So that would be done here if for an existing project under utility.
Regarding the question, Carsten has pricing on plan design and then proposals as well. Carsten, I mean, it really depends on your unique needs. For example, if you have a turnaround on overnight, if you need a turnaround in 30 minutes, 2 days, it really depends on those things and the volume as well. Andrew will reach out to you to give you a little bit more insight on that. Yep. So Michael's question about shade reports. Yep, we are actually being certified by a lot more TPO providers as well. We recently got certified by Lightreach. Our shade reports will be accepted. A lot of the other TPO providers and GoodLeap, the standard ones on the financing side, accept our shading reports as well. Everbright, we're still working with because they do have their own platform, Citin. There's a little bit of difficulty in getting that, but we are working on getting them integrated as well. And we don't have, George, do you want to answer that, show that?
Yes, Darren's question.
Usage?
So there's no green button data and we're basically just estimating monthly usage. We're looking at an existing system that already overproduces. So I understand Darren's question is he wants to go to and basically negative consumption. Not supported today, Darren, but I will be sure to check in with a colleague of mine who's working on that and we'll get back to you with a firm date as to when that would be supported.
I think Jan's the sizing to PV, it really depends on your system mode or battery mode. If it's a backup or if it's a self-consumption mode, it really depends on that. But we recommend a 1:1.5. So for a 7 to 10 kilowatt system, we do a 15 kilowatt hour battery. But again, it really depends on the homeowner's needs in terms of what mode they want to be in. I think, George, there was one other question. Maybe Kelly or someone asked how to add the incentives. And I was trying to paste a snapshot. I couldn't. Could you quickly show that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, bear with me. Let's go. We want to window this guy. All right. So I'll just kind of call it out here. Under your settings, not everyone on the call will necessarily have access to the settings page, depending on kind of the role and permissions that you're assigned in Solargraf. But if you don't, someone you work with definitely will. So it is good practice to come over to the settings You can see my device doesn't like screen sharing right now. But basically, there's a section in there where you can manage your incentives. So it's good practice to go in and check for incentives that you regularly use, especially if you're working in a very specific geographical area. So that's one place I'd say, it's always good practice to just go and review that list. There may be some that you want to enable by default, because more often than not, you will actually be working with those incentive programs. Things like the federal ITC are already there. Okay, this is taking a little bit of time. Maybe I'll open a new tab for now. It's really, sorry, my device is getting a bit tired. There we go. I think it's the screen share that's just a little bit heavy for it. I'll head back to the project and just kind of show you exactly where you would do that on an individual project. But essentially, it's in top right corner of the page. You'll see something called settings. When you open that menu, you'll see something called manage incentives. And from there, you can sort of activate or deactivate various incentives that are applied to the project. And you can do that per design option. So as we saw in today's demo, you may have one design option that has no battery, one that has a battery. Could be the incentive only applies when a battery is added. So you can actually apply the incentive only to that one design. So for those that have access to settings, it's just in here in your pricing section, incentives and rebates. Just head to default incentives. You can see whichever ones you currently have applied for all new projects. You can then open up available incentives and just look through a pretty extensive list. I say, I think this company I'm working with is, I believe, based in California. So we're just seeing a California sort of filtered list. But if, for example, I'm working in San Diego County and I'm got a very high battery attach rate, I would, for example, want to put this SDG&E demand side grid support as a default incentive, so I don't have to apply it on every project. If I don't necessarily want to apply it every time, but on any given project, I do want to enable that incentive. As I say, just head to settings, pick obviously the design to which the incentive is applicable. In this case, it's the PV plus battery, into manage incentives, and then there you'll basically see a pretty exhaustive list of available incentives. So you'll see the ones that are currently applied to the project, and then there may be others that this project also qualifies for as well.
Mark is asking if you could share the PDF proposal. If you are you able to open it here?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, let's have a look. So obviously, the web version's fine. Before I actually show the PDF, what I'll just mention, guys, is that the web quote is broken up into sections. Most of those sections are going to be sections we provide you. So one for design, one for pricing, one for savings, etc. You guys can create your own custom sections. You can also have like an about us section where you talk about your installation company, why you're the best. Maybe you want to showcase your previous projects. You guys can obviously pick and choose which of these sections you display and in what order. So what order you kind of tell that story. Each of these sections essentially represents one page in the PDF. So I will download the PDF, but I just wanted to mention that you have control over which pages are actually included and in what order they are presented on the in that file, in that PDF file. So let's just have a look. One download in progress. Let's open that up. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Really, all the same content that you're seeing on the the web version. So obviously, you guys can customize the logo, the images, the colors, the kind of layout, the fonts, all that kind of stuff. What kind of data actually displays? You'll have a quick look at the design. As well as if there's a battery, how does that look? This is obviously kind of a stock photo. We will soon allow you to sort of superimpose that hardware on a picture you've taken of the customer's home. Obviously here it's a cash deal. It's pretty straightforward. What's the old bill, what's the new bill, and obviously what the savings are per month. We can talk a little bit about the materials. So I think we had a question around spec sheets. Here, we can just sort of download a spec sheet for the IQ8 Plus. You can, on the web version, choose to show videos or promotional materials in addition to the spec sheet that appears here on the PDF. Usage breakdown just talks about, kind of a cumulative savings graph and so on. Again, you can pick and choose kind of what information shows here. I've got payback period ROI. In some cases, those might not look quite as attractive as they do here. So, you can pick and choose on a kind of customer per customer basis what information you show to them. This month by month breakdown is really nice. The web version is much cooler because we can look at any of the next 25 years rather than just year one. But it basically shows you for each month of the year, what your production is, grid usage, any payments towards the system, your remaining utility bill, any net credits, and so on. Project timeline, you can customize this, but it just kind of lays out to the homeowner what's going to happen, in what sequence. You don't have to show these dates if you don't want. They're generally intended to be provisional. If it is a cash deal, when are the payments taken? It's always a nice detail. And then obviously you can have a signature page if you want. Although I should add that Solargraf is integrated with DocuSign, so you can actually execute legally binding contracts from Solargraf without having to manually copy all the data from Solargraf into DocuSign. So in general, this signature is kind of a signal of intent to move forward. It's not your final contract. Hopefully that answers the question on the PDF.
Yeah, I'll send you one, Mark, after the call.
That's great, thanks. Yeah, hearing you loud and clear, Kelly, on your Solar Pro. We can definitely get that updated. I think there is actually one other configuration that changes it to your solar consultant, so maybe we can extend that to you in the short term.
Do you have a term you prefer, Kelly? What would you? Is there something you'd want it to say as a default?
Yeah, energy consultant. Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, yeah, it all come. We could probably get a short-term solution in for that pretty quick. I know, as the same Vani mentioned in the chat, this whole proposal, both the PDF to web quote, is going to look far different at the end of this year. So if anyone uses Solargraf today and you would like to give specific feedback, it's a really good time to reach out to us on what you'd like to see in the next version of the quote.
Yeah, Christopher will be sending out an email following the meeting.
Andrew, I saw Michael had a question around sort of the fields that are presented when the user requests a plan set. Might be worth just shooting him a quick Loom or quick demo on that process.
Yeah, Michael, I'll reach out directly and we'll set up a meeting. I'll walk you through it. And for everybody else as well that is not already using Solargraf and would like a demo or questions answered, that's what I'll be here for. So I'll share my information in a second. You can take it down. From here. So our phone number's here, our email's here, our website. If you'd like, it would be easier to go to the website and you could schedule a time and book a full demo in using the calendar. You'll see all the available time slots, line it up with what you're available for, and we'll jump on a call for a one-on-one. We have a few more minutes. Anybody have any last questions? Anything else that they want to review? Yes, we'll email the presentation out. Carlos, we currently integrate with Goodleap, Mosaic, Dividend, and Service Finance for residential and BMO with commercial. Sounds good, Michael. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, I saw a question from Carlos on finance companies we integrate with. I think, Andrew, you'd already typed it out further
Yeah.
up. I'll just find it and read it back for everyone. Just because I don't want to miss on. Yeah, so it's Goodleap, Mosaic, Dividend, Service Finance on the loan side. BMO is also making a well, they have a couple of products, a capital lease product and a true lease product, which are only available for commercial. And then we're in talks with pretty much everyone you can imagine on the financing side to integrate with Solargraf.
Great. Again, thank you everybody for your time today. We'll be sending out following emails on the one last question. An installer in Italy, will Solargraf be in Italy?
Do we have a proper answer on that, Bhavani?
Yeah, we are launched in a few countries in Europe. Italy is in the end of the year. I don't have a firm date yet. Yep. Same thing. In Asia, we are actually targeting a few countries where in-phase hardware is going to be making big. So we have a few countries, but I just don't have the dates yet, and I hate to give something without dates. But we have them on the roadmap, definitely, Mark. Sounds good. Everyone, thanks for joining us today. We'll be emailing the presentation and the recording as well. So thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. We'll reach out soon.
Thanks for coming, guys. Take care.